Hey everyone, it's Michael Goosebumps fan. Today I'm going to be talking about a film that is like a Goosebumps type thing, you know. I know I said I wanted to wait off a little bit on this, but this Black Friday I found something that I was super excited about. I picked it up for $20. It is something that I never thought I would be able to find. Never. According to the title alone, it is Mr. Sardonicus. However, it was in a big box set. It was a 6-film collection set of William Castle's movies on Blu-ray. And this is great. It has 13 Ghosts, Straight Jacket, Homicidal, 13 Frightened Girls, and Berserk, and also Mr. Sardonicus. When I saw Mr. Sardonicus written on the cover of this box, I about freaked out. I've been looking for this movie for about a year. I've been having a hard time trying to get a copy of it just by itself because I wasn't sure to try out all this other stuff. I have talked about one previous William Castle film, which is my personal favorite at the moment, but Mr. Sardonicus is very close, if not right at, right on top of being tied with House on Haunted Hill, the old Vincent Price 1959 film, I think is what it was. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. The more I watch it, the more I love it. I've seen it 2 or 3 times now. I talked about it during October, I think it was, of this past year, 2019. And it was just such a great movie. It was scary, it's creepy, it's fun. And when I saw this box set and saw that Mr. Sardonicus was collected here, I just about freaked out. This movie looked awesome. Now, of course, I'm going to tell you right now, don't look up any pictures of it. Just get a copy of the movie and watch it, especially if you're a big fan of Goosebumps movies. Of course, this came out in 1961, so it's kind of in that era of things that I would argue possibly influenced Goosebumps, or are so much close to being like Goosebumps that I think people would love it. It's not a kid's film or anything, but a lot of these old horror movies from black and white days were kind of the type of movies that anybody could enjoy. A whole family could sit down and watch them. But this is a horror movie, in my opinion. It might be partially a thriller type thing, but I think it has a lot of gothic aspects to it that I loved. I thought it was such a great movie, and I'm so thankful that it lived up to the reputation that I've heard about this movie from people like the Angry Video Game Nerd, James Rolfe, when he talked about it, over to some of the other people on YouTube I've seen talk about it every once in a while. I've wanted to see this for so long, and it lived up so well, and the ending was so satisfying. It was such a great movie. I've raved about this movie all night long. I'm serious. I watched it by myself in the dark, and it was fantastic. My phone is trying to talk to me, sorry. Anyway, Mr. Sardonicus, what is this movie about? It kind of starts off with our main character being a doctor who uses a lot of very risky, not so much recommended methods to heal his patients, especially paralyzed patients. And he eventually kind of gets invited to go out to this place. I think it's in London. By the way, the film takes place in 1880, I believe. It's kind of a period piece type thing. So when he gets to this castle that's owned by this rich man named Baron Sardonicus, which the Baron is also married to a lady who's very pretty as well, the Baron happens to wear this really creepy mask, because apparently he has a disfigured face. And he wants this doctor to help him out with some kind of method, because he's used a bunch of other doctors in the past and other patients and stuff that he's done his own personal testing on to try to get some kind of method to fix what happened to his face. I'm not going to tell you anything about the face. I'm not going to tell you anything about the movie aside from those factoids for the most part. There's also an assistant in the film, a servant, if you will, that's only had one eye, basically. He's an older man who is Mr. Sardonicus' helper. This movie, it's a very slow burner of a movie, but it's so creepy, and I loved it, and the finale is so tense and scary. If you've liked anything I've recommended on my Things Like Goosebumps page, or my portion of this channel that's focused on this kind of thing, if you've loved anything that I've recommended to you, check this out. This movie's great. If you can get a copy of this or watch it on digital or anything, you will not be disappointed if you like these old black and white horror films from the 60s and the 40s and 50s and whatnot. I'm a big fan of this kind of stuff. I don't know how much a younger viewer on my channel would like this movie, but I adore it. I thought it was so freaking good. This is a great testament. This and House on Haunted Hill are great testaments, in my opinion, to how great William Castle is, number one, but number two, how lame movies have been for a very long time, horror or otherwise. This just stands out so much to me. It's such a great, iconic, creepy movie. And the backstory, because, by the way, Mr. Sardonicus himself, Baron Sardonicus, has not always had this disfigured face. He's only had it for a while. And his backstory as a character is so great and so memorable You know, that's what I've heard from a lot of people that I've talked to about this movie. People that saw this when they were kids have remembered this movie all these years because it stuck with them and it scared them so bad as kids and as teens and everything else. It's just great. And I don't think there's too much of a gimmick either, like a lot of William Castle movies. Of course, when 13 Ghosts came out, the original, not the 2001 remake of that movie, William Castle had a lot of little things he would do with movies that are gimmicks. Like, with 13 Ghosts, it was kind of like this thing called Illusiono. I think it was Illusiono Vision, something like that. It was kind of like a 3D bar thing. We'll talk about that more when I talk about 13 Ghosts in the next video. But he kind of would have things like that. When he premiered House on Haunted Hill, I think that's the movie where he had like a skeleton with bright light eyes like fly over the audience in the theaters. You know, he would do stuff like that, and it was really cool in my opinion. I would love to experience something like that. I think it could have been so scary for audiences back then. He made movies fun, you know, and we don't do that anymore. Most movies themselves that are supposed to be just dumb fun are not dumb fun anymore. They pretty much always suck, almost constantly nowadays. You might have 2 or 3 good movies nowadays, and typically they're not horror either. And if they are, they're overrated almost every single time. Look at the Paranormal Activity movies. I mean, there's a couple of those that are kind of cool, but the first one, do you remember how much people talked about the first movie and how they tried to raise it up to be this great, amazing thing, and it sucked? Anyway, this movie's great. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. I could recommend it all day long to you and spoil everything in the movie, but I'm not going to do that because I respect it too much. I think that if you love anything that I've talked about and recommended on these things like Goosebumps portions of my channel, you will adore this movie. It is freaking fantastic. I'm so thankful and satisfied that it was so good and so much fun to watch. But anyway, what are your thoughts on William Castle? What are your thoughts on this particular movie? Put your thoughts in comments down below. What are your thoughts on my review? I'd love to hear that as well. If it came down to rating Mr. Sardonicus, excuse me, on a 5-star basis, I'd give it a 5 out of 5. It's incredible. It's absolutely fantastic. But again, it's kind of a slow burner movie. Don't jump into this expecting jump scare after jump scare. It's really not like that. It's kind of a movie that takes its time, you know, and it's a little bit slower paced compared to something like House on Haunted Hill or 13 Ghosts. And yet it's so good. I adore this movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies now. I cannot believe how good this is and how people don't talk about the ending. Man, it's great. Such a great, fun, creepy movie. Anyway, put your thoughts down below, guys. Thank you for watching. 5 out of 5 stars from me. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.